Taylor Swift album out. And y'all know what that means. Hello my lovely friends, it's Margaret. Welcome back to the channel. This is a very simple video. It's just, if you like this Taylor Swift song, you might like this book. No further explanation needed, right? Oh no, wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. Starting out at the top with Welcome to New York, a song about reinvention and New York City. And many of you probably thought I was going to recommend a Percy Jackson book because most of them take place in New York City, but I'm not. I'm not. That's later. What I'm actually going to be recommending is Miss Percy's Guide to the Care and Feeding of British Dragons by Quenby Olson. This book takes place in Regency, England, and I'm only now realizing that there is still a Percy involved. I did not plan that. This is about a woman in Regency, England who has been living with her sister. She receives a inheritance from an eccentric old uncle who is very rich. They're thinking maybe there'll be some money, maybe there'll be this, that, something that they can use, that her sister can take and use. But what she inherits is a dragon egg. This is about a woman reinventing herself, rediscovering old dreams, and finding a romance that might have been waiting for her. For Blank Space, I wanted to come up with a book that I felt kind of rose to the same level of camp, of intensity, of stakes that we get through that fantastic Blank Space music video. I needed something that was a little tongue-in-cheek, didn't take itself too seriously, and really had fun with the tropes. And for that, I chose The Blonde Identity by Ally Carter. This is following a woman that wakes up with no memory of who she is. There are a whole bunch of spies, and she has got something that they all want, including this really hot, mysterious dude who seems to maybe be helping her. Ally Carter has made a name for herself writing spies and thieves and like different kinds of like intrigue and girls who are in like tight spots and having to think their way through and think their way out of things and put pieces together and all of that. She has taken that and taken it up to the next level. I had such a fun time with this, read it in one day. It's a trip. You're going to be going, there's no way this is real, and then you're going to go, I don't really care. Moving on to style, we had to go with an iconic couple that just can't seem to keep their shit together. And I will be honest, The Cruel Prince by Holly Black would fit most of the songs on this album. Like, I just kept going through and was like, oh, Cruel Prince would fit here, Cruel Prince would fit here. But it had to go here with style. We follow Jude in this book. She is kidnapped as a child by a fairy who also murdered her parents. She has this like feud, hate thing going on with a fairy prince named Cardan. If you like two people who hate each other, but also are super into each other, for Out of the Woods, we're going with a book that gave me a little bit of anxiety. Just made me very anxious as I was reading it. That book is going to be This Woven Kingdom by Tahereh Mafi. I just read this like a week ago, and I need to tell more people about it. In this book, we follow Eliza and Cameron. She is the heir to a long-forgotten, long-thought-dead Djinn kingdom, and he is the current heir to the kingdom that kind of got rid of her family. This would also have worked for style because they meet, and there's this instant attraction between them, and they can't stay away from each other, but at the same time, they're like, this is a bad idea. So much of this book is just Eliza going, okay, if I can get through this, I'll be fine. And then it gets worse. The number of times that she's like, are we out of the woods yet? Am I out of the woods yet? And then it's like, no, I'm not. 4. All you had to do was stay. I am going to recommend one of my favorite retellings of Persuasion. It's a little bit of a gender swap situation. We're talking about Persuasion, but for this one, both of the main characters, or the love interests, the main romance, they could both jam along to this song for different reasons. That book is Where the Rhythm Takes You by Sarah Das. This is set in Tobago, and we are following Reina as she is trying to basically keep her father from selling her family's hotel. This was her mother's project. It was her mother's baby. It is something that is very, very important to her. And her mother died several years ago, so Reina kind of sees it as her duty to take on this mantle of this hotel and carry on her mother's legacy. And in the middle of all of this, her childhood best friend, who she also had a massive crush on, comes back for the first time in years. They're dealing with the fact that there is a lot of unresolved stuff in between the two of them, kind of dealing with the fact that she is kind of, because she's part of this hotel, having to help his friends, his new people, help them kind of do this whole thing on Tobago and do this whole big trip. It's great just being able to watch how Sarah Doss was able to capture and recreate the things that make the original Persuasion just the experience and the masterpiece and the wonderful story that it is. Moving on to Shake It Off. We are going to talk about a main character who spends most of this book having to shake it off, having all kinds of stuff thrown at him in all kinds of situations and all kinds of just messed up things that he's having to deal with. And he has to go, I gotta shake it off. I gotta keep going. I've got a quest to do. And that is The Chalice of the Gods by Rick Riordan. This is the 6th Percy Jackson book and one of the only sequels that you will see on this list. He does this in all of the books. I will be honest, he does. You could start with The Lightning Thief, he does it in all of the books, but this is the one where we see the most of him being like, okay, you know what? It's not important. I'm just gonna move on and do the next thing, because he's not having to save the world in this one. This is following Percy Jackson. He is the teenage son of Poseidon, something he found out at the ripe old age of 12 when his mother got demolished by a minotaur and he got accused by Zeus of stealing Zeus's lightning bolt, and then he had to go on a cross-country quest to prove that he didn't steal it. The average day for a 12-year-old, you know? We are following Percy in his final year of high school in this one, and he is having to do 3 quests in order to get accepted into the college that he wants to, because it's a demigod college. He has been tasked with finding the Chalice of the Gods, which has been stolen from Ganymede, and it is his job to find it and bring it back so that Ganymede does not get in trouble with Zeus, something that you really don't want to do. For I Wish You Would, I needed a book that had like all of the longing and regret and just kind of like what ifs that song had. I was trying to find like all of that in a nice, neat little package, and what I came up with was The Luminaries by Susan Dennard. Can you see this? Let's switch to the less shiny one. There you go. Y'all should be able to see that one just a little bit better. This I like to describe as Gilmore Girls meets Buffy. We are following Winnie Wednesday, and she belongs to a society that's kind of reclusive. They're a little small town. Everybody knows everybody's business. The whole reason that this small town exists is that they are near these woods where there is magic that causes nightmarish creatures to rise up at night. It is the job of Winnie and the other families here to make sure that these nightmares do not leave the forest. Winnie has only ever wanted to be one of these monster hunters, and then her family got exiled. Her family's exile is supposed to last 10 years, which is a problem for Winnie because her 16th birthday happens during those 10 years, and that is the only year that she is able to pass the test that the monster hunters take. And she ends up enlisting the help of a former friend named Jay, who she may or may not have had a little bit of a crush on. Book 2 is coming out very soon, and I am so ready for it. Really ready for it, because y'all, the tension between the two of them, the longing and pining between the two of them, because they are still like, she doesn't want to admit that she's into him, but she very much is, and he has been into her for a very long time, very clearly, and it is just been, it's hard for both of them as they're doing all of this intense training and dealing with all of these kind of nightmarish situations. And also the fact, I forgot to mention this, there is like some big bad weird spooky thing that is nothing like anything they've ever dealt with that is killing, I want to say shadow hunters. These are not shadow hunters. Monster hunters are just turning up in pieces. She's trying to figure that out because she's seen this weird glitch in the woods, and so she just is like, something's going on, but none of the adults seem to be paying attention to this. For Bad Blood, that one was a little bit hard because I already have so many books that like, oh, there's Bad Blood. This is another one that The Cruel Prince would fit. I picked a book where the situation at the beginning is the Bad Blood song. That's where they are. We have 2 main characters that, or at least our main character, coming home. He's not on great terms with the person that has summoned him home, but he can't say no to them. That book is going to be A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. We follow a couple of main characters in this book, but our real person that we kind of start the story with is Jack. This story starts as Jack is returning to his home for the first time in 10 years. He left the island of Cadence to learn how to be a musician, and then he ends up getting summoned back by the daughter of the chief. He and Adara have a weird relation, like a very contentious relationship, because he remembers a lot of bullying, and there definitely was a lot of bullying because no one knows who Jack's father is, and so that kind of put him as an outcast. And then Adair's like, hey, I need your help, and they have to start working together. If you have any knowledge of Gaelic folklore, you can definitely see where Rebecca Ross is pulling things from. But I love the start of this situation where Jack comes in and he is raring for a fight. He's ready to, not sure how things are going to work, knowing that, like, he and almost everyone on this island are at odds. Like, they just did not treat him well as a child. And then he comes back in the middle of this situation where young girls are going missing. And Adair is like, please, I think you can help us because you are the last musician was my mother. She's dead. You are a musician, and I have an idea for what we can do to fix this, but I need your help. For Wildest Dreams, I decided I was going to go with a book that very much kind of has that permanent feeling separation. We are following two main characters in this book. We are following Kell and we are following Lila. This entire world is set up around the idea that there are 4 Londons, so 4 different worlds. Kell is from Red London. Lila lives in Grey London, and then we also have White London and Black London. Kell has a very specific special skill which allows him to travel between the different Londons, and so he is an ambassador between the different worlds. He has come back from a trip to White London and ended up in Grey London for other things, but when he came back from White London, he actually took a relic from Black London, and that relic has a very powerful magic in it. He ends up getting Lila involved and all of this other stuff. Lila is like the blueprint, the original stabby girl. Kell ends up accidentally running into Lila, and she realizes what he can do and forces him to take her back to Red London. And so the entire book is them trying to figure out how to stop this weird magic that he has somehow accidentally unleashed in his travels, and also like just dealing with this very undercurrent of tension, like sexual tension between the two of them, and the fact that they kind of but they don't. They did, but they. And that's all as much as I'm going to tell you about this book. For How You Get the Girl, the book that I chose, it's going to be pretty self-explanatory. So I'm just going to tell you it's Once Upon a K-Prom by Kat Cho. In this book, we are following Elena and Robbie. Now, Elena and Robbie were best friends up until the age of 10. His family had come to the U.S. for business purposes. His father concluded that business, and so he took the family back to Korea. And Robbie and Elena made a promise to each other at 10 that if they were not dating anyone when they got to their senior prom, that Robbie would come back and he would take Elena. They would go to prom together. Here's the thing. Robbie ends up getting scouted to become a K-pop idol. And they very quickly, like within a few years, lose touch. So Elena has not heard from him at all until he shows up at her front door and is like, hey, you remember that promise we made as kids? Do you want to go to prom with me? Elena slams the door in his face. It's great. And Robbie is like, wait, what did I do? What the heck? This is a problem. So this is a book about Robbie figuring out how to reconnect with his best friend from his childhood, figuring out how to undo the damage that was done by those years of silence. We're going to flash forward just a little bit to Reputation because I'm not going to explain a lot about this. I'm going to tell you about the book, but I'm not going to explain why I picked it. I would just, spoilers. It fits the song, and you can figure out what is going on and where it fits the song and who I'm talking about in the series. Read the book. It is We Hunt the Flame by Hafsa Fazelle. There are reasons I am recommending this book for this song. They're not in this book. Unless they are. I don't think they're in this. Potentially. Anyways, we're following Zafira and Nasir. Nasir is the crown prince of Aralia, and he's also, known as the Prince of Death because he is also an assassin. Zafira is dealing with the fact that she is almost the sole source of food for her village. No one knows what her actual identity is, but they know what she does, and they know that she is part of the reason her village is still alive. One of the things that is happening in this book, part of the world building, is that Aralia, the different kingdoms in Aralia, have been cursed by the removal of magic, and it's always winter. It is very hard to get things to grow. So she is out there hunting on a regular basis in this forest that normally drives people crazy, but Zafira is able to deal with it. And that ends up meaning that Zafira gets recruited to be able to find this book that is supposedly the thing that will help release magic back into Aralia. She gets recruited along with Nasir and a couple of other people to go to this island prison and see if they can figure out where this book is and get things back the way that they're supposed to be in Arawia. For I Know Places, I chose a book where the character understands that claustrophobia of having people's eyes on you at all times, of knowing that your every action is being judged. That is not where we start in the first half of the book, because originally this was 2 books and they got smashed together as one. We do get there in the second half of the story, and it is just watching her have to deal with this. It's just so good. That book is Crown Duel by Sherwood Smith. We are following Meliara Astaire, and she and her brother, upon their father's death, have agreed that they are going to carry on his cause, and they are going to go to war against the King of Ramalda, which is their land that they live in, because he is raising taxes. He's threatening to break treaties that they have made. They're the underdogs going up against a much larger foe. Like I said, there is some court intrigue and politics that we see towards the second half of this book, where Meliara is having to deal with the fact that she is very much under scrutiny. Now, obviously, everyone at court is dealing with that, and she turns to someone to kind of help her with that, an anonymous someone. Without spoiling things, I can't really tell you much more than that, other than that the romance is just, this book is the reason that I am an enemies to lovers girly. For clean, I'm going to recommend a book where I felt clean after having read the book. The character also very much kind of experiences that moment in a way. Like, literally experiences that moment almost. There's literal punching through roofs. Technically it's not punching, but like, you read the book, you'll understand the reference that I am currently making to that specific lyric. But that's The Butterfly Garden by Dot Hutchison. I'm always recommending this book. I love it. I want more people to read it. We are following an FBI team that their job is to take on the juvenile cases. They deal with serial killers, and the specific serial killers that they deal with are the ones that kill children. And they come upon this crime scene of these women who have broken out of a secret harem that this politician was keeping. They were known as his butterflies because he would tattoo butterflies on their backs. Our main character is one of these girls, and the FBI team is sitting down trying to find out from her what exactly happened that led to this situation that they discovered. And this is where we start the beginning of the book out. So you know that that's the situation, that these girls have been rescued from this man's home. They are sitting down with our main character, Inara, and trying to get from her what happened. And they're also trying to figure out what her potential culpability might be. Go into this with care, because there are definite content warnings for CSA, just regular old sexual assault, rape, like abuse. From what I remember, she does not go into great graphic detail, but she does talk about some of the things that happen to her. I got very close to crying in the middle of a Starbucks, and that's not something I do I never cried over a book. This one got very close. For Wonderland, I'm a menace. I am a menace because I can't not recommend this book. There are other books in this whole world that this author has created that I could recommend that would fit this. They definitely would, but this one does too. I had to, because it's my favorite. I feel like this series is the best in the entire world that this author has built, and that is Clockwork Prince by Cassandra Clare. No, it's not. It's Clockwork Angel. We're following Tessa, who thinks she is a normal person. She thinks she is a normal American girl going over to London to meet her brother so that they can start over there. Supposedly he has a job, all of it. She doesn't get to confirm any of that, because the minute she gets there, she gets kidnapped by these 2 weird women who torture her until she starts shape-shifting. Turns out she is able to do that. Did she know that? No, she did not. She ends up getting rescued by Will and Jim. They are 2 shadow hunters. Basically, they hunt demons, and that has led them to where Tessa is, and so they end up rescuing her and taking her into the shadow hunter world, because she very much is she's definitely one of the paranormal peoples. This whole book is about trying to figure out, what the heck is Tessa Gray? Who is she? Why is she the way she is? For You Are in Love, I chose not to go with a romance. I won't go into why this fits the song, because again, spoilers, but if you get to the end of the book, you'll know what I'm talking about. That book is going to be The Two Lives of Lydia Bird by Josie Silver. This is mismarketed as a romance. It is not. There is a little B-plot that's there, but this is mostly just about Lydia grieving her fiance. We start at the very beginning of the book, right as Lydia is getting the news that her fiance has been killed in a car crash. And then we jump forward a few months and we find her in a place where she is just trying to put her life together. And she ends up going to the doctor to help her with some depression that she's experiencing. And these depression pills have the weird side effect of making her able to go into an alternate universe where her fiance is still alive. No, it wasn't depression pills, it was sleeping pills. She was having a hard time sleeping. Anyways, this was just such a beautiful portrait of grief. I think it was really done a disservice to be marketed the way that it was for people to think that, like, be told that this is a romance, because it's not. We see her try a couple of times to kind of get some dates going. We see her start some relationships. We see her interacting with some of his friends and them grieving together. They're trying to put their lives together. One of his friends was actually in the car with him. He's got massive survivor's guilt. He's a mess. If you go into it knowing what it is about, it is such a beautiful book. The resilience of this woman and the journey that she goes on as she is trying to find a way to heal. For New Romantics, this one was hard because New Romantics is my favorite song on the entire album and also in Taylor's entire discography. I am going to go, though, with Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This is following Laszlo Strange. We're also following like a whole other group of teens. This is a YA, they're all teens in this, but we're following Laszlo, we're also following this other group of teens. It's a dual narrative. Laszlo is like dealing with the fact that this city that he's been obsessed with, this mythical, magical city that no one remembers the name of, they just know of it as weak. He's been obsessed with it, and it turns out there are people who are like, it's real, and we need to take people to there to help rebuild after this massive tragedy happened. Above the city of Weep, this like floating palace thing, situation thing. I'm not going to go into it. We don't have time for that. But we're following 6 teens that are trapped in that. This is an ensemble book, and I love the way that Laini Taylor is able to take all of these different journeys that we are seeing among these teens and with Laszlo and the party that he is with, and bring them together and make this very rich and wonderful plot. The ending will get you. You'll want to have book 2 ready. I'll just tell you that now. But it is so good, and I love it. For Slut, I'm recommending a book. And I'm recommending it for one specific scene that, once again, to no one's surprise, I cannot talk to you about because it would spoil things. But if you've read Legendborn, you know exactly which scene it is. You know how it ties, like, you know how it ties, well, if you may not have listened to this song. But if you've listened to this song, you're gonna go, I see what you're doing, Margaret. That book is going to be Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. This was one of my favorite books of 2021. It is a retelling of the King Arthur myths, and we are following Bree. I'm going to take the retelling part back. We are following a modern day round table. We are following Bree, who has no idea that this world exists until she goes to UC Chapel Hill. She is going as part of an early college program because she is grieving the death of her mother and she needs a new, kind of a change of pace. She needs a change of scene. She goes there and then she sees this thing where this boy fights this random energy creature. She's like, what the heck? And they're like, what, you can see this? And so she ends up getting drawn into the world of the Legendborn via the scion of Arthur. What the situation is basically is a secret society where they are all descended from King Arthur, and they end up taking each of the different roles on the round table, and the higher up they end up getting called, the worse whatever is coming is, and their job is to keep the demons in the demon world. This is Shadowhunters, but with more history and a lot more just stuff that Tracy Deonn is talking to you about. For Say Don't Go, I am going to recommend The Bromance Book Club by Lyssa Kay Adams. It's going to be obvious here, just let me kind of explain what the book's about. We are following Gavin, who recently discovered that he has not been pleasing his wife quite as well as he could have been. And that kind of ends up with a big blow up in their marriage. He ends up very quickly regretting the entire fight, realizing that he'd maybe gotten a little too much of his ego involved in there and wanting to make amends and fix his marriage. His wife is not having any of it because she's been, this has been her reality for several years. He ends up getting connected with the Bromance Book Club. And the Bromance Book Club is a book of a bunch of different guys, several of them on his baseball team, that they sit down and they read romance books and try to figure out how to be better partners based on what is in these romance books. And so this is about him being a part of this book club and also trying to, like, be the partner his wife should have had all along. Now That We Don't Talk is a little unhinged, but, like, it makes sense if you've read the book, I promise. It's gonna be Ella Enchanted by Gail Carson Livy. This is one of my favorite books from middle school. It is a retelling of Cinderella. She was given the gift of obedience by her fairy godmother, which translates to she does not get to say no if you tell her to do something. One of the things that happens is that Ella ends up making friends with the prince. Like they end up becoming very close friends, and then, you know, how Cinderella goes, her mother dies, her father remarries, she ends up with a wicked stepmother, and the wicked stepmother starts to kind of figure out what she can do, and Ella realizes that she is a danger to her friend, and she cuts off all communications. So we're in a very much a situation where, like, she is no longer talking with Char, the prince, and she, like, having to hear about him secondhand. It is such a good book. It holds up so well. It is still delightful reading it years later. As I'm talking about this, I'm kind of wanting to read it again because it's been a while. For Suburban Legends. For Suburban Legends, I'm going to recommend what I thought was going to be my favorite book of the year. Normally I would recommend the first book in the series, but like Suburban Legends just fits this book in particular so well. So I'm going to recommend the book, and then I'm going to tell you what the first book is about. There are so many different ways that it fits the song, okay? This is one of the very few, like, books out there that have, like, stated demisexual representation, and I love it. That usually is, like, the selling point for people. The book is Painted Devils by Margaret. Oh, not me, Margaret. It's a different Margaret. Unfortunately, if I had written this book, oh my god. Like, if I had written this book, I couldn't retire because it's the second book in a trilogy, but I wouldn't need to ever write anything else. This is such a good book. The first book is Little Thieves, and it is a retelling of The Goose Girl. So in the first book, we are following Vanya Schmidt. We are also following Vanya in this book as well, but, like, there's a whole plot that resolves in the first book. She is currently masquerading as Princess Giselle, and she's also using that identity to sneak in at parties and, like, steal jewelry from people. And then she ends up stealing from the wrong person, and gets cursed, and she's told, you will turn into gemstones. Thought we had enough battery to make it through these next two books, but no, we did not. I had to change the battery, so if the angle changed, that is why. Got 2 weeks to figure it out, and she's like, you know what, I'm just, like, maybe I can do the thing that I'm trying to do with my godmothers, because she is the goddaughter of Death and Fortune, which are low gods. That's important. You probably need to know that. She is trying to get away from them because they're like, hey, you've become mostly an adult now, and so you have to choose which one of us you need to serve. And she's like, I don't want to serve you. I want to be your daughter. She's trying to steal enough money that she can get out. And unfortunately for her, while she's trying to figure out, get the last heist and get away from these low gods and maybe outrun her curse, the cops show up, basically. The fantasy Polish version of the FBI shows up, a junior agent, and he's like, hey, I'm trying to figure out who's been doing all of this thieving, and so she's having to avoid him, steal stuff, deal with this curse, and all of that, and then this is the fallout from that, where they are, once again, having to work for each other, or work with each other, not for, with each other. If you are a fan of Batcat, this is Fantasy Batcat. And now I know you guys are asking, is it over yet? But we do have one more song, which is It Over Yet? My friends, I sat and thought about this one for a very long time, because there are so many ways you can interpret it. And the final interpretation that I kind of came up with is I tried to find a book that is as messy as this song, the relationship in this song. And not in a bad way, like not messy, just like the stuff that is going on in this book is just, it's a mess. That book is going to be Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. We're following 4 points of view in this. I don't even remember all of their names at this point, but they are all leading up to this solstice where a whole bunch of magical stuff is going to happen. Problem is, I think only like one point of view here knows what's happening. We've got like a blind prophet that has hired this woman to take him to the solstice. We have got the priestess that is dealing with the fact that the solstice is coming and the rituals that are going to be happening here. It's all of them leading up to the solstice and then dealing with what's basically the aftermath. There's a little bit of a romance, there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on, and it's just like there are so many different pieces that I read this book and then immediately was like, well, I need to reread that because I know I missed half of it. It is based on pre-Columbus South America, as if that had been able to continue on unmolested. It's just like so beautiful and rich and lush, and the different ways the magic works and the different things that are going on. I had such a good time reading this. If you like to think about things and pick things apart and try and find different connections, and you know, if you're a Swiftie, you know you'd like to do that. Be honest. This is the book for you. It is just, there's so much going on. There's so much mess. It's amazing. I want to know if you guys have read these books. I want to know if you agree with the choices that I have made for some of these songs, or do you think there is another book that would work better? Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, I'm going to have my Speak Now video that I did right over here. I've got more book recommendations. That is it for now, my friends. Happy reading, and I will see you later when we will talk about more wordy, nerdy things. Bye!